Hey everybody, this is Josh and welcome to Consume the Canon. So this week we are going to wrap up Clone Wars with a review of Season 6 and the unfinished Season 7, which looks like it's probably going to be the basis for the new season that's coming out on the Disney streaming service later this year. And then we'll also cover a few items right after Season 7 that are in the timeline. So let's go ahead and jump in. So, Season 6 was the season that was created for Netflix. After Season 5 ended, everybody thought that was going to be the end of Clone Wars, but then a new season was created on Netflix, and that season was a set of a few tight episode arcs. The first one being an arc focusing around Fives, the famous Domino Squad clone trooper, discovering that there was something weird going on with the clones, specifically with a chip that was implanted in all of their brains. Now, of course, we know later that this is the chip that helped Emperor Palpatine let Order 66 happen. But it's initially discovered when a clone trooper named Tup accidentally kills one of the Jedi that is working with his squad when they're fighting with a bunch of separatists. So this arc, the 4-episode arc, goes through a bunch of different elements. The first episode is about discovering that there's something wrong with Tup and deciding that they want to bring him back to Kamino to do more studying. After that, it's Fives diving into some of the biology of what's going on, trying to do some of his own investigative work to determine what's happening. The third episode is bringing Tup back to Coruscant so that then it was Palpatine, Grand Chancellor Palpatine, and not Emperor Palpatine. But it was when Palpatine wanted to control the whole scenario a little bit more. He knew that Tup, being discovered with this faulty chip in his head, was going to be the kind of thing that was going to throw his whole grand plan out of whack, which, eventually would be the destruction of all the Jedi. So he wanted to bring Tup back to Coruscant. However, Fives came with Tup during this episode, and this is when Fives realizes that this isn't just a problem with Tup. This is something that is in every one of the clones' heads, including his own. And so, at the end, he confronts Palpatine. We're not really sure how. It's not actually shown on screen. And Palpatine says that Fives tried to attack him. And then the final episode is about Fives trying to escape and Rex and Anakin tracking him down, Fives trying to explain what is going on, but never really fully explaining it before he's actually killed by a squad of clone troopers. This episode arc is great. It's very strong, and it is fundamental for really following the canon of Star Wars. You have to know these pieces of the puzzle. I mean, you don't have to, but it's important to know them so that you understand what Order 66 was, how it was implemented, and how it really was going to be affecting all of the clones that were part of the Clone Wars. Specifically, the clones that survive until later series like Rebels, Rex and Gregor and Wolf. So after the Order 66 and Clone Wars arc, we have a 3-episode arc that involves Clovis and Padme Amidala trying to figure out some stuff that's going on with the banking clan. Frankly, it feels like a lot of content to focus on the banking clan, and it doesn't really hold up that well. It's 3 episodes, and really it just kind of rehashes the same things that we already know. The Separatists are working with Palpatine through Dooku. It is causing some pressures that Amidala can't really figure out. But for all intents and purposes, it's stuff that we've already seen before, and dedicating 3 episodes to it felt like it was much more dragged out than it really needed to be. After that is a 2-episode arc with Jar Jar Binks and Mace Windu going to help an alien race that their queen apparently at some point fell in love with Jar Jar. And people on their planet just start disappearing. Now, the people in this race are very strongly connected to the Force. So Mace Windu feels like he needs to go along because there's probably something there that he needs to be aware of. This is another episode that really tries to make Jar Jar more than he really is. It's trying to make him a character that we really want to care about. And it's not that I don't care about Jar Jar, it just feels forced to me. It doesn't feel like it makes a ton of sense. On the other hand, it more fortifies who Mace Windu is. You know, he is a zealot. Mace Windu is a zealot for the Jedi Order, and he feels like there's only a right way and a wrong way to do things. And in this 2-episode arc, it becomes very clear to Mace Windu doing what he thinks is the right thing to do is more often than not more destructive for the situation that's going on than anything else. In the 2nd episode, we actually discover that the person who's disappearing all of these aliens and trying to steal their power is none other than Mother Talzin from the Night Sisters and from Dathomir. She was previously destroyed and was only really like a spirit creature, and now she's trying to use all of this Force power to give herself a corporeal presence that she can then again affect the galaxy with. At the end of this 2-episode arc, there is a great sword fight, because I can't really call it a lightsaber duel because Mace Windu is using a lightsaber, but Mother Talzin is using this cool-ass green magic sword. But the episode ends with Mother Talzin being destroyed, finally, and the alien race being saved. Overall, there's not really a ton going on here. It's neat to see Mother Talzin show up again, but there's not a lot of growth as far as the canon is concerned. However, if you want to talk about the canon, the last 4 episodes are a massive arc involving Yoda, which eventually leads Yoda to meet the Wills. So, if you don't know who the Wills are, the short version is the Wills are basically a race of beings that have a deep, interconnected role with the Force. They're kind of like the overseers of the Force, and they watch all Force users and how well they are connected to the Force. And this 4-episode arc, which ended the Netflix season and what people thought at the time would have ended Clone Wars entirely, resolves with Yoda interacting directly with the Wills. However, the arc starts with the discovery of the lightsaber by Plo Koon and a group of clone troopers, the lightsaber of Jedi Master Sifo Dyas. Now, if you don't know Sifo Dyas is the Jedi that apparently 10 years ago reached out to the Kaminoans and talked to them about creating a clone army. Now, he did this without any of the input from the Jedi Council, and the Clone Army was created because of him. So, the first 2 episodes are about Yoda exploring Sifo Dyas, why he did this, trying to determine what was going on there. And eventually, Yoda starts getting contacted by Qui-Gon Jinn, who at the time, Yoda's like, this isn't possible. Qui-Gon can't communicate with me from beyond the grave. But we've actually seen Qui-Gon talking with individuals. He actually spoke to Obi-Wan Kenobi when Obi-Wan and Anakin and Ahsoka were dealing with the father and the son and the daughter. He spoke to them from beyond the grave, and this is Yoda experiencing the same thing. Now, the rest of the Jedi Council thinks he's kind of crazy, so he works with Anakin to break him out so that he can go on this adventure and eventually meet the Wills. He interacts with them. They show him the future, but it's a future that he doesn't fully understand. He sees that the Sith are very close to completing their plan. He sees the future that is going to include Darth Vader, and it's terrifying for him. But Yoda doesn't know what to do next. He's not sure how he can really stop any of these things. He just knows that it's going to be an eventual horror that everyone's going to have to deal with. And the season ends with Yoda, for all intents and purposes, accepting this fate and not being able to share it with the rest of the Jedi Council. He knows they're not going to believe him. He knows that even if he told them, there's nothing that they could really do about it. But he does express to Obi-Wan that he is going to teach him something. He is going to teach him how he can reach out to Qui-Gon so that Qui-Gon can teach him some of the things that Yoda has learned, which is being able to come back from being dead and become a ghost form, which we have seen in television shows and movies past this point. And that's the end of season 6. After that is the unfinished season 7. So the unfinished episodes of season 7 are kind of difficult to describe. So there's 2 4-episode arcs. One starts with the episode Death on Utapau, and then the other episode arc is a whole set of episodes around a group of clone troopers called the Bad Batch. Now, there's some things that are interesting, though, about these episodes. The first is that they're fully voiced, and all of the special effects are in the episode. So you have all the main characters voicing all of the characters in it. So it's actually pretty easy to follow along and watch. It's not really that disruptive. The disruptive part is that none of the visualizations are completed. So the animation is not completed. There's a lot of funny stuff going on where the characters are just basically floating around. Their mouths don't move when they talk. But it looks as though from some of the trailers that have come out for the new season that's going to be on Disney Plus, these 2 arcs are probably going to be covered in this new season, the new season 7 on the Disney streaming service. So the first arc, the main thing that we learned from the first arc is that separatists are looking to gather kyber crystals, specifically one massive kyber crystal that they find on the planet of Utapau. And the whole arc is really about Obi-Wan and Anakin trying to figure out how to get the kyber crystal from the separatists and how to stop this whole plot from happening. One of the key things that happens in this episode arc, I believe is in the 2nd episode of the arc, is that it's the first time that we actually see Anakin being upset about Ahsoka not being around. It's something he doesn't mention at all in season 6, but in the first arc of season 7, he shows how frustrated he is that Ahsoka decided to leave. And it's an interesting thing for them to capture in season 7 and not in season 6. But the rest of the arc, it doesn't really set up a ton of stuff. It's helpful. There's some neat story that's told there, but overall, the Death on Utapau arc really doesn't add that much to the canon. The same thing can be said for the 2nd arc. There's not a lot that gets added to the canon, but it is so much fun because it focuses all of its attention on this group of clone troopers known as the Bad Batch. So the Bad Batch are a bunch of clone troopers that have had different changes made to their bodies or their minds or whatever. So they're technically clones, but one of them is super smart, and one of them's basically like Rambo, and one of them's incredibly strong, and one of them's a great sharpshooter, and none of them look like clones, but they are all still technically clones. And they are basically like the group of clones that they send into situations where they know that no one's going to survive and they need some, crazy capabilities to be able to get things done. And so the last arc is about the Bad Batch. And unbelievably, they actually discover some stuff that's pretty remarkable with regard to previous clones that we thought were dead. At the end of the 2nd episode, A Distant Echo, the clone troopers, including Captain Rex and the Bad Batch, discover that Echo, who we thought died seasons ago, is actually still alive and being held by the Separatists and is being used to figure out some of the attack methods that the Republic is actually using. The next 2 episodes are about breaking Echo out and then using Echo to defeat the Separatists eventually, who are who they're struggling against. I love that they brought Echo back. I love that they incorporated him back into the story, but it feels like a loss that we don't ever really see Echo after that. I would have wanted to see more of Echo, but frankly, there's nowhere else that I could see him. But But it was great seeing Echo again, showing up, especially after just losing Fives in the previous season. Overall, the unfinished season is kind of weird. It's a little difficult to watch because the animation isn't completed. But if you just kind of close your eyes and squint a little and listen well, it feels like some decent Clone Wars episodes, which I think we're going to see cleaned up once they get on the streaming service. Okay, and that's all we got for this week. Season 6 and Season 7 are done, and that means Clone Wars is finished. But we've got tons more things to go through. We're only about 15% of the way there. We've got a lot more content to cover, and I'm going to be covering a lot more of that next week, starting with Dark Disciple, Asajj Ventress, and her last great struggles to be good. We're going to cover all that and more next week. Thank you for joining. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next week on Consume the Canon.